Welcome back this week to Pro Wrestling Review, the television show single-handedly responsible for putting WCW out of the wrestling business. I'm Randy Detour from the Tribune Review.
I'm Brian Krasman from the Daily News.
Joining us, as always, Jim DeBruzza to my left, Tom Combetti to the way right. We want to change things up a little bit. We talk a lot about wrestling, the WWF, our favorite promotion.
Did you get your stock report this week, Eric?
No, it's a little late. The email's on the fritz, but, I talked to Vince about it.
Oh, yeah.
We're cool. We're cool.
Does he hand deliver your checks like he does with mine?
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's Baby Earl, but,
there you go.
We'll get to that next segment. We want to talk a little bit about Vince McMahon, our friend and yours.
I love you, Vince. I'm sorry.
You had to get that out of the way. He appeared on the Bob Costas show, which is on HBO, I think, Tuesday nights?
Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I'm about as unprepared as Costas
There's
was.
6 more emails right there because we're unprepared.
Well, it's no worse than Costas was, but
Yeah.
Vince showed up and they wanted to ask him some questions about the XFL, WWF, and it got kind of ugly.
It got real ugly. It's funny because Bob Costas is very lucky that he is world-renowned as one of the best sports commentators and broadcasters in the world. And I give him that. I mean, he's very good at what he does. But
no one can make a Hakeem Olajuwon jump shot seem so riveting.
That's right. It's almost like Greg Brown
it's the
calling
NBA
a
on
double play.
NBC, and no one's watching.
That's right. But it's funny because I was watching the broadcast. I couldn't help but think, and Vince McMahon actually had pointed out a couple times how unprepared Costas actually was for the interview. And it's funny, I'm watching it, and as the interview was over, I was thinking to myself, I guarantee the entire weekend we're going to be reading about how Bob Costas buried Vince McMahon, and sure enough, the next day in USA Today, Rudy Martzke had in his television column that, Costas buries McMahon. I mean, they must have shown 2 different interviews.
Actually, you know what? It's not buries McMahon. They got to get that wrestling phrase in.
Yeah.
Slams McMahon.
That's
Ooh.
Right. Yeah, this is a news shock for you guys. The mainstream media hates Vince McMahon and he's evil. Well, that's breaking news,
The new Phil Mushnick book coming out.
Yeah.
Going to be a New York Times bestseller.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I'm getting money off of that because I have that phrase copyrighted now.
When are interviewers, sportscasters, the mainstream media going to realize that McMahon could be in a room with 12 dead bodies, blood all over himself with a knife, look the cop in the eye and say, I did not do it. And you know what? They'll believe him. The thing is, not so much that he lied on Costas, he didn't. But McMahon has just a way of persuading people. I mean, he could come to me, Brian, we talk every Wednesday night.
Right.
Tom, jump off this
Gonna be late
building,
for that phone
move your
call.
feet real fast, you'll be fine. And you know what? I'd be hard-pressed not to believe him because I love him.
He convinced Kevin Nash he could draw money. I mean, that's the biggest lie in the world.
Yeah.
But you know what? As unprepared as Costas was, I don't think Vince needed to do any of that. Lay on the BS, as putting it eloquently as I can. But come on, I mean, look at the Trish thing they brought up. That was creative editing, and anyone who knows anything realizes Costas looked like an idiot.
Well, yeah, Costas basically did the same thing Phil Mushnick always does. There we go, and I promised I wasn't going to say his name anymore. What he does in his column all the time is that he brings up dated things that the WWF did 2 years ago because, and according to the world of Bob Costas and, that other guy, sins aren't forgiven, I mean, they're the biggest Christians in the world, let's all sit down and say our fathers. But none of the sins of the past are forgiven. It's always like they do suck it, and they do crotch chops. They did suck it, and they did crotch chops. I mean, that stuff has largely disappeared from television.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, real quick. Just those 2 gentlemen bring those things up to serve their own needs. It's not maybe something in the past few years hasn't served their needs, and that's why they keep bringing that stuff up.
I was going to add to this. Somebody tell Costas to tell Road Dogg that they're still doing the suck it chants and the crotch grabbing because he may still be employed for that matter. That's all he could do anyway. But McMahon brought up a very interesting point about Costas saying that he doesn't watch wrestling, which I'm sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Also about Mushnick not watching wrestling. Somehow, I don't really believe that. I can see Mushnick in his game jersey getting all hot and bothered over the fact that there's a little nudity or, Lita's pants are pulled down or whatever the hell's going on. I can just see him screaming at the TV with his action figures and having a good time and writing his column.
Well, the thing is, notwithstanding that, is the fact that whether it's Mushnick or Costas, for some reason, the mainstream journalists, whether they're sports journalists or just regular journalists, they somehow can find a knack for drawing comparisons with the WWF in something that's totally unrelated. You talked about that last week.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. The media is never going to be enamored. WWF is never going to be the darling of the media. So stop, like you said, stop trying to appease them. Just do your product and don't worry about them.
Right. No, the one thing I will say against Vince McMahon is that I think from now on when he does segments like this or whenever these opportunities come up, you ought to let his son do it. Because as poorly prepared as Costas was for this interview, McMahon also came off maybe a little childish. And I think the problem with McMahon is the things that we've already mentioned on the show is that the news media is not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Vince McMahon and the WWF is a target. They are not treated fairly, and they are not given proper coverage. That's the truth. But when McMahon acts the way he did on the show, when he gets all hot and bothered and gets in Costas' face and calls him pal and things like that, it doesn't help his case.
Hey, buddy, that's Mr. McMahon coming out.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem.
Oh,
if you had
I
Shane
agree.
McMahon on there calmly pointing out, we haven't done Suck It in a year and a half, you know, your references are dated, you need to watch the programming, I think McMahon's arguments would have come off better.
Brian, they don't like each other. They're wrestling at WrestleMania.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Kayfabe.
The truth of it is, I can understand your point, but let's imagine for a moment that somebody criticized something that you were totally enamored with. Like Vince McMahon, you criticize the WWF. This is something that he's always had.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm sure Vince takes it to heart. Does he mean to be come off as such a jerk? Probably not. Would he have said the facts had he been calm? Probably.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you criticize his life and his livelihood and his business. And I mean, I can't fault Vince McMahon for lashing out at Bob Costas.
I can agree with you, but I also think it gets to the point where I think McMahon's got to calm himself down and say, I mean, you had to know what he was walking into. And I think that it's one of those things where you've got to calm yourself down and say, all right, look, we know what this is going to turn out to be. Let's make Costas look like an idiot, you know? Because he could have done it. I think he could have easily made Costas look bad.
Just by being calm.
Just by being calm and pointing out his errors and his flaws. But, you know, that's just not Vince McMahon.
I think one of the final straws as we close the segment, I think going into the XFL, which was part of the interview was about as well, I think that might have been the final straw for Vince. Obviously, still a legitimate sporting event, and nobody in the mainstream media is looking at it that way. I think that went a long way to what Vince did on the Costas show.
Well, just to close this out here, McMahon did offer some great advice to those people out there, those critics of the WWF, the XFL, what have you. Just turn it off. Don't watch it. Great advice for the literal people in the anal yuppies of the world. Sorry, Rennie.
Wow.
Oh, you know, I'm kidding.
What's happening?
You hold this show together, bro.
Okay, with that poor, pathetic display.
Wait till the cameras go off.
I will. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about WCW's pay-per-view, Greed. Stay tuned.
Today, we were talking about, well, we're not going to talk about Costas anymore. We're going to talk about WCW Greed, which could very possibly be the final pay-per-view of that company's history. The cake will be out in a few moments. Tom will be
Jim,
popping
you want to
open
light
the
those
champagne.
candles for us?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I be in the cake if I'm going to pop out of it? This is poor production planning on our writers' parts once again.
Researchers.
Somebody get Mr. Blotzer in here and kick him in the ass. He should have this
He
stuff
lost his
figured
guitar
out.
pick. He's distraught.
Actually, he's the drummer.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry I know that, but...
I'm sorry, you
So,
did too.
so much like the rest of the internet, everybody's happy that WCW is going out of business for some reason.
Yeah,
As we are.
Oh,
yeah. I like all the people at home who send us these ridiculous emails to actually listen, maybe tape this segment, maybe take some notes. We're actually upset that WCW is basically, for all intents and purposes, at least for the next couple of months, is going to be dead. They lost their television deal with TNT and TBS.
TNN's rough, aren't they?
Ooh.
First Heyman?
Yeah.
That
Jamie
person
Kellner,
never-
who's the head of programming for AOL Time Warner, decided that wrestling was too lowbrow. You know, even though it's been on Turner Broadcasting for 30 years.
Yeah, you can still catch a copy or a showing of Over the Top with Sly Stallone, but wrestling's lowbrow.
Or Fishing with Orlando Wilson. I mean, give me a break. But
Or the ever popular Andy Griffith
I was
series.
just going to say that. Like, Andy Griffith is so,
It's
high
105
tech.
years old. Lincoln's on there with the NWA title. There's
Little Ronnie Howard getting eaten by a crocodile.
That's right.
Well, that was in the uncut scenes, but currently
Yeah,
available on the
that's right.
Andy Griffith DVD.
DVDs.
Not to take up too much time here.
But actually, though, if this ends up being WCW's pay-per-view swan song, at least they kind of went out on a somewhat of a high note. Although Rick Steiner was involved, there was some good stuff on the show.
I mean, I had the luxury of reviewing the pay-per-view for the Pro Wrestling Review website. That's prowrestlingreview.com. You know what? I didn't think it was a bad show. There was a lot of matches on there, like Bigelow and Mecca, that I could have really done without.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, it was a good show. It was a good way to go out. I mean, Diamond Dallas Page was bloodied by Scott Steiner. That's always a positive thing. And the guys seemed to work hard. I was impressed with Jason Jett in the opening match.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. I mean, a lot of people talked about him whenever he was at ECW as Easy Money, and a lot of the fans there, talked highly of him, and I guess really he's finally starting to show why he was so highly touted. I never really thought much of him in ECW, but
The tights always bothered me. It's like he forgot part of them in the bag.
It was a stupid name too. Easy Money. I mean,
Well,
plucked right off
Julio
the
De Niro.
Yeah, I mean,
Were they feuding with Kid Cash or whatever the hell his name was?
no. But making his debut with WCW, unfortunately, is going to be sort of short-lived for the time being. But
Well, one thing I thought I was kind of disappointed with was the lack of quality in the Shane Helms Chavo Guerrero match. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because Shane Helms changed from long tights to short tights. Maybe I don't know what it was, but the match was very, very disappointing, especially considering the caliber of both these guys.
I'm sure you've heard people say this before. We may have said this on the show, but anytime WCW has something good, you can almost put money down on it that next week it's going to be bad. I mean, Shane Helms, we've been talking about on the show, he's a future superstar. So what do? You put him in black trunks and white boots. You make him as white bread as you can. And then they make the biggest error of all time Monday night and let this white Mike Tyson talk. Oh my God.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we should have some kind of rule for WCW that cruiserweights are not allowed to wear short tights. But no, I'm going more from the idea that did these guys even work out their match before it took place on pay-per-view? There was a lot of mistimed moves. There was a lot of blown spots, if I can use that word.
Maybe it was one of those things where they've worked a lot in the past frequently enough. Just, you either run out of things to do or you try too hard to top your previous encounters and you just blow some spots.
I mean, while the main event, the tag team match was mercifully short, not that, I wouldn't mind hearing Luger go, for 8 or 12 minutes or something like that. But the Mike Awesome, Lance Storm, who the hell did they wrestle? Hugh Morrison Conan match. It wasn't even watchable. It was so unbearable. I don't know what the hell happened if they all got drunk beforehand off Conan's. But I still don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Lance Storm I've never seen him look that bad. And
Whatever,
send your email, Pro Wrestling Review at wherever the hell the email is. Yeah, email.
whatever momentum Hugh Morris had, his general erection, and when he was feuding with Lance Storm is gone.
You say he had a lot of momentum, his general erection?
I'm going to bring up a point here. We've talked about this a couple of weeks ago with Morris.
Yes, I am.
WCW is great at one thing, and that's de-emphasizing people.
I thought you were saying burying people, because that's about what they did with Lance Storm.
Yeah, that's
and Mike Awesome.
But for the sake of this argument, I'll say de-emphasizing. It kind of hit me Monday night when Mike Sanders came out with Disco Inferno, first match on Nitro. Yeah, Mike Sanders shouldn't have been put in that role he was in with the Thrillers, but he was learning, and apparently they were moving him upper level of the mid-card. And all of a sudden, he's back down on the first show in Nitro, completely unimportant.
No.
You know,
I mean, maybe he deserves to be there, maybe he can learn more in that role, but...
What are you going to learn with 2 weeks left, though? Might as well throw him
true,
out
too.
there.
Yeah.
Set the ring up.
The other thing about the pay-per-view I was kind of disappointed with was the fact that, I mean, we've talked before on the show about the Cat and how he doesn't belong anywhere near a wrestling ring unless it's to strap the turnbuckles on, but what did Chris Kanyon do? I mean, he came back, he was a house of fire, he beat DDP, which I'm convinced, cost him about $2,000, and now he wrestles the Cat, loses, and has to make this guy look good on pay-per-view. I mean...
Well, I subscribe to the theory Canyon was never that good to begin with.
I don't think he was. Yeah, I was never crazy.
He has a
about it.
Jim,
couple
there's nobody
decent-
better than him. Just he'll tell you.
I stand corrected.
Okay, but you'll give me the fact that Ernest Miller sucks.
Who?
Yeah. Yeah, the Cat.
Better character than ring work, and that's really looking
Did
for
you say
something
he
good
has
to say.
ringworm? No.
Either way.
Well, in addition to never letting the Cat near a ring again, Bigelow should be drawn and quartered, I believe. Maybe tie one arm to a pickup and one arm to a horse and just go their separate ways. I don't care if he's a tattoo artist. They threw that match out there at the last minute. Oh, they had something on Nitro to build it up.
Yeah.
It was god-awful build-up.
Yeah,
we had somebody
talked about
burp
that
and had
last
a match that was better than that. I'm sorry.
Well, I think Bigelow did during the match, so that if that's enough for you.
He split the crotch out of his pants, so he did work hard.
The only guy in the history of the world to split a pair of sweatpants.
That's Mick Foley.
Yeah. Well,
But by the way, we like the pay-per-view, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's unfortunate too that the company is, at least for the next couple months there will be no WCW. Right now it's basically in a state of flux. The Fusion Media deal is in serious jeopardy because there is no television deal. WWF's back in the mix because there is no television deal. They can go by the name, the copyright, and the wrestlers. Jerry Jarrett's been mentioned as a possible person, but whoever buys them, if they plan to keep him a viable commodity in the pro wrestling industry, they're going to need a television deal, and that's not going to be easy to come by, and it's going to take a few months. So we're going to be talking about Wheel of Fortune and things like that in this show.
Yeah, we're gonna have Pat Sajak on, I think.
So we're going to come back. We're going to talk about some other assorted things. WrestleMania is starting to shape up, and there's a Night of Champions to look forward to next week. So we'll be back after this.
And guys, I don't know if I can speak for you, but I'm thankful that Nitro's going to have one more week, the Night of Champions, for one reason. Because this past week's Nitro ended with the Rhodeses and a donkey. And I being a longtime WCW NWA fan, often preferring them at times, I just can't see it end like that.
Well, maybe Kevin Nash, if he shows up next week, can take the place of the donkey, since he's the biggest jackass main eventer they've ever had. But on a serious note,
if that falls through, he could always fake a second heart attack.
Oh yeah.
I can't get in the ring. I'm having angioblast. Whatever that's
My
called.
plane took off and I was still at McDonald's.
That's right. Yeah, Bischoff was, it's not like Nitro to overhype something, but, they played off this whole Bischoff thing, the whole segment, like he thought he was going to announce he bought the WWF. And it turned off. It was
that'd be quite a curveball.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if he would have said he bought him? Just another Bischoff swerve.
Yeah, like when he called out Vince McMahon for his pay-per-view.
Yeah, and Nitro on the proper note. But anyway,
with an explosion in the ring.
Yeah, he announced that next week is going to be a Night of Champions. All the titles are going to be on the line. He invited any former champion to show up next week, so Chris Benoit will not be on Raw. Anyway. We're gonna go to a clip right now. I assume this is gonna be our tag title match next week. Lance Storm, Mike Awesome against Chuck Palumbo, and
I don't know who it is. I have another point to make.
Lost my train of thought.
You talk
a good idea that you get excited about. The next thought in your mind is, okay, how are they gonna screw it up? And that's just what I'm worried about.
Hey,
they're gonna find some way to just screw this up. And
here's my question. I think Bischoff's going to be there. I think he implied that he was going to be at Nitro this coming Monday.
Yeah, he is going to be there.
Why not just hold the stories? Even if Hogan comes away with the belt, and God, I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh,
but what does it matter if they're off for 6 months? If Hogan has the belt, Booker T has the belt,
Because
or
you
or I
right.
win the belts. Yeah, you do got
Here's
to
why
end
you
it
have to
right.
end it on a high note. If you're going to be off television for 2 months, 5 months, 10 months, give the fans a reason to tune into the new WCW, however long it takes him to get back up.
Right.
If you have him come back in Savage in his Spider-Man outfit and Hogan, in his Thunder in Paradise garb, come out and win all the titles and kill Mike Awesome in the ring, then I really want to tune in when it comes back.
Well, the only thing I can see with that is Booker T. Obviously, I think you can say is your most popular face. Steiner is right now your strongest heel. Yeah, I think hopefully Booker T comes away. You end it, like I said, on a high note, and hopefully get back on television real soon.
Well, Rennie, you and I talked about this earlier. I mean, this is going to be the last Nitro for God knows how long. Like we said, we're stressing the fact, do it right. For instance, have Ricky Steamboat, have Arn Anderson, guys like that, Tully Blanchard, Ronnie Garvin, Jimmy Garvin, whoever, have them come out, do guest ring intros.
Yeah.
Then, assuming Booker T, let's say Booker T does defeat Scott Steiner for the title, have the two shake hands afterward. Lift them on his shoulders. He's a winner. Wouldn't that be a nice
let's clarify something. He is the only winner that WCW has that's in a main event position besides Scott Steiner as a babyface.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And I think the other thing, in accordance to all the things we've already mentioned, is I think that they should just take the time to end everything next week. Let's leave other than maybe a little something to carry you into whenever the new WCW starts, but end all your angles. Let's get a little finality to things so that for once, we can finally say that, WCW took some stories and ended them. Even if the endings suck, end the story.
I'll settle for clean wins.
I would too, and I think that has something to do with ending the story.
I think you're going to see a Guerrero and a Helms rematch. Obviously, I think the Cruiserweight Tag Title rematch, all of which was kind of built up this past Monday. There's nothing wrong with clean wins. And I just wish Luger and Bagwell.
This is the same company that still has the baby doll pictures in the envelope from Dusty Rhodes and Larry
That's right.
Zbyszko. It is about 15 years still in the making. It's still the angle's still in the making. So as far as ending everything, the Humvee driver, whoever the hell that was, Spider-Man, like you brought up, I don't think it's going to all end this week.
Well, you never know. Savage might take the Spider-Man mask off and say, "I drove the maybe."
Well, no, I have to bring this up just because for reminiscence sake. Kevin Nash got hit with the Humvee, right? No, Hogan. Who the hell was in the Humvee that got hit?
Everybody.
I think Nash and Hogan.
On WCW's website, like 3 months later, they have one of those pools up there, who's the favorite, who's DDP's favorite, whatever the hell. Who drove the Hummer? Nash was one of the choices. He was in the damn limo that got hit. I love WCW.
Yeah, who doesn't?
You know what? WWF, Mark.
Don't talk to me like that. One thing, if you want to have Kevin Nash, if you want to have Goldberg, if you want to have Sting a part of this last Night of Champions, they don't necessarily have to win the title. Yeah. They can come out maybe during the main event, surround the ring as Booker T is about to win the title, and be the guys in the ring congratulating him. It's like Tom said, hoist them up on your shoulders, make it go out, and seem like the biggest show you've ever seen.
Right, and that's what they should do. That's how the show should end. It's gotta have the feeling that you've just seen a major event. Because if not, then you don't have any momentum to build to a new Nitro.
Why bother tuning in?
Exactly.
We're all familiar with the days of WCW, Thunder, Nitro, whatever, going off the air at 25 after 10, before 11 back in the day. So it is possible. Oh my God, he's raged.
Hopefully that's
Beetlejuice with a drop kick.
But we're all accustomed to that going off the air. Fans are out of time. Don't do that this week, Tony. If you have to lie to the viewers, just do it.
Yeah.
To close out this segment, WCW in the past have cheated their fans out of countless main events. They've had wrestlers no-show house shows. For once, Eric Bischoff, live up to some promises and make this a Nitro and deliver for your fans. On that, we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about Raw and maybe read some viewer mail. Stay tuned.
For our trivia contest. So without further ado, let's kick it. We're supposed to do this in pre-production here.
My microphone fell off, so I don't want to hear it from you. You've already given me enough crap. Anyway, we're gonna go through the questions here. Our winner was Kyle Golick. The first question we had was, which active WWF superstar has competed in the most WrestleManias? The Undertaker, and he is a perfect 8-0. Or 7-0, I don't know. The second question, what was the main event of the first ever WWF In Your House? It was Diesel versus Sid Vicious. I know you know that because we all have it on tape.
I have a T-shirt from that event.
That's classy.
Yeah.
Which wrestlers have held both the WWF and WCW World titles? We have the Giant, or the Big Show, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Randy Savage, Sid, and Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. And the question from last week's show, what WrestleMania did Morton Downey Jr. appear at? WrestleMania 5. Congratulations to Kyle. I'm holding one in here. George Kellerman, the guy's a regular visitor to the website. He always gets every single question right, but he misses that one thing, and he forgot Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. So, George, we love you. Keep trying. You'll win a pizza sooner or later. I'm done.
Should I tell
My mic stayed on.
Tell them what they won, Bri.
Well, what's his name?
Kyle.
Wow, Kyle.
Like from Terminator.
Yes. You win one large pizza with one topping, an order of wings, and a 2-liter bottle of some sort of carbonated beverage from Pizza Works. And they have 3 outlets, one in Findlayville, one in Jefferson Hills, one in Javosburg. Jim, read the question. We don't have a whole lot of time.
The question is, what building and city was the first Nitro held? You got to answer that. Go to the website, answer those 3. Once again, what building and city was the first Nitro held?
And be forewarned to leave your name, address, phone number, email address, whatever else you want to tell us. So, Tom, what do you have to say?
I have nothing to say.
On that, good luck.
This is your favorite segment. We haven't done it in a couple weeks. It's time for the Bag of Mail fun.
Yeah.
And I'll kick it off right now. This is from Chase, who is also banned in Bethel Park. Hey, buddy, let's get together. We'll burn the city down one
That's
time.
right.
I realize it's about yay big, but hey, what the hell?
Just watch the studio, that's all.
And Chase is wondering, I was just wondering, why Tim White always used to referee the Godfather's matches? I really don't think there's a reason. I know Teddy Long gets excited with the hose in the ring, but as far as Timmy White goes, I can't really answer that. But hey, keep watching, and we appreciate the mail.
Well, it seems like every time we do the viewer mail, we kind of have the moron of the week. This week, it's our friend Johnny.
You mean it's not me, Brian?
No. To whom this may
Tom,
concern.
you can't win it every week.
Yeah. To whom this may concern. I am very upset with Press and Review for their, THERE, actions as of late, as all they do is talk
It's a homonym.
expletive on wrestling, the women and broadcasters and so on, and I think they do a crappy job on TV, so their, THERE, know better. These men, small t, and women who are in business work very hard to be where their, THERE, at, and all Pro Wrestling Review does is cut up on them.
We are evil.
No period. I, small I, mean, look at this way. Pro Wrestling Review is on a local channel in Pittsburgh, and the wrestling itself is nationwide. All right.
Well,
WCW isn't going to be much longer.
We're one up on WCW at this point.
Yeah.
No,
I gotta agree with him, though. I mean, he makes a valid point
Yeah.
about everybody.
It's interesting. Everyone always criticizes us like that. If you'd have kept reading the letter and had a tolerance for it. Always, every time they always criticize us, they always offer to be on the show to get us rating
Yeah, that's
points.
the thing at the end. He wants to be on the show with us. All right, look, number one, it's called spelling. And there's 3 different uses of the word there, and I think maybe you need to learn them. Phonics.
So, in closing, Johnny, right back real soon. No.
Yeah, what's that phonics?
Okay, we better cut your
Hooked on
we better
phonics.
cut your mic before this really gets out of hand.
Yeah, Johnny, see ya. And he, I'm sorry, one more thing for you, Reed. He posted this at 11:41 Sunday morning, so like it actually took him, 12 hours to formulate this thing.
Well, I'll never be able to top that, but I'm holding 3 emails here, and they basically all say the same thing, and it's something we've talked about before about how Taz should not be announcing, and actually should be wrestling. I posted a column on the website about that. It's real simple. Taz was brought in as a wrestler. He beat Kurt Angle in his first match, and now he's announcing. Somebody's messed up.
Yeah.
Where's Terry Taylor? Let's blame him.
He's not
We should point out if you want to write to us, it is ProWrestlingReview@lycos.com. This one's from Dave and Elizabeth. Starts off pro review.
Talking to you, buddy.
That's me. I am the show, by the way. Why do you name your show Pro Wrestling Review? You should call it WWF Love Fest. You turn around and look at your backdrop.
Oh my God, how'd that get there?
My God, it's a Renoir.
That's a blue
It's the
screen.
AWA ring.
Yeah.
She's. I'm sorry. He actually writes she's.
Cheese?
You got Chef stock in the WWF or what? They're asking
We
us.
do.
Yeah, we do. It's very profitable, actually. I just sold mine. He goes on and on.
My
He says,
share's under 10.
yeah, he goes on and says, well, I watch WWF and I see reruns of ECW angles. Yeah, but the WWF's doing it right, and they're not going out of business because of it.
Every angle is a rehash of another
Yeah, that's
angle.
true. We should bring it up. There's no
Good
original. It's like
God.
sitcom television. There's no original ideas left in wrestling. Get over it. He ends up by saying, he talks about WCW a little bit more. It isn't as one-sided as you view it. Well,
Yeah,
It's
the
not- it's
two,
not
the
us.
two they draw every week, I think, maybe makes it a little
It's-
one-sided.
Maybe
It's
it's
not
that
us.
lack of Mecca shirts they've been selling since he came back 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and I'm sure he watches. We do thank him for the mail.
Yeah, but we have this conversation every damn week. You've actually got to, people are going to hear what they want to hear. When you watch our show, please actually listen to what we say. Because although, okay, we talked about WCW for 2 segments, and we did rip them, but we also did compliment them on putting on a pretty decent pay-per-view. It's not like we don't rip the WWF. Tom threatens to kill The Rock every week.
Well, kill's kind of a harsh word.
Well, mutilate.
Burn at
Rennie,
the
you
stake.
talk about how Taz shouldn't be a commentator, should be a wrestler. I mean, please listen. We may devote more time to the WWF, who currently is putting on a better product, but we also do just as much complimenting. We also do just as much criticism of their product as well. I mean, listen to what you're hearing on the show and quit hearing what you want to hear.
And on Killing the Rock's note,
Yeah.
I think we're out of time.
oh, well,
Oh.
nobody tells me anything.
Terrible. We have so much more mail to go through.
Are we going through it again or what?
Yeah, let's read it again.
We're being told no.
Well, we'll be back next segment. We're currently going to roll the dice and hopefully come up snake eyes, Kevin Nash. That one's for you. And we'll see what we do next. So stay tuned.
The critics let you know it as they announced that Crash TV was back, so why don't we delve into that topic?
Yeah, what the hell was with that? I don't get it.
I don't understand, because my interpretation of Crash TV is throwing things out there that don't have any sense and
Right.
seeing if they stick to the wall. And they brought up the fact that, and we'll get into this, about the tag team titles changed twice and the
Yeah.
hardcore title changed once, which I think is great if the hardcore title only changes once
Yeah, right.
in the span of 2 hours. But we saw the return, or I'm sorry, not the return, the debut of Rhino and Spike Dudley, and the tag team titles changed hand twice, but they served a purpose to introduce those 2 new guys. So,
And I don't even think so much for that, but I also think it's, as we talked, I think last week on the show, that they're going to another TLC match. It's going to be another 3-way at WrestleMania between Edge and Christian, the Hardys and Dudleys. And so, say what you want about the tag title switches. I'm more of a proponent of longer tag title reigns instead of these rapid fire changes. But if it did one thing, it did accomplish and add a little bit of sense to that TLC match. And funny enough, I think they don't need to do this TLC match. I think it's really overdoing it. But this is the best promoted TLC match they've done so far. Unfortunately, it's just not going to have the impact of the other
No,
two.
see, I don't buy into that really, because I think if they wanted to promote the TLC match, they could have the title switches while using ladders, tables, and chairs.
No, I don't think they do, because you already have the history between these 3 teams. And it's
Yeah,
only
you do.
obvious that these 3 teams would face off in a TLC match, because that's what made these 3 teams famous in the WWF anyway. I just think it's, you're just going on logic here.
I love the fact that when 2 guys debut, a title change hands, and you have a returning China, all of a sudden Crash TV is back. I guess Vince Russo's back too then. Ed Ferrera's ready to take another Faces of Death suplex from Dr. Death. Whoops, he's not with the promotion. But we did see a little prelude to the WrestleMania matches, obviously more being announced last night. One being announced in WWF New York with Eddie Guerrero and Test.
Yeah.
Why? You mentioned that on the website. I didn't understand that either. Eddie Guerrero was
was
sitting
eating
there
fish
blowing
and
his
chips.
nose,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he has a match at WrestleMania. Well, maybe if I go there, I can wrestle Jim Ross. Why the hell would I want to do that?
Well, I was thinking, and I talked to Tom about this earlier.
No, you didn't. It's a liar. We don't talk off the set.
Yeah, we hate each other, by the way.
It's a half-hour drive in silence back here.
Yeah, just quiet. Volume 5 blaring. Ooh. Anyway, one of the things that we brought up was maybe having Edge and Christian and possibly inserting Rhino as a three guys, and then you can have the Dudley'S, Spike, Devon, and I can't remember the other ones because Spike came back, Bubba and Devon, and then have the Hardy Boys and have them find a third guy, and maybe add all those guys into a TLC match. Change it up a little bit. I realize that's a lot of guys in one match, but I mean, to me, that's a perfect opportunity to bring Jerry Lynn in as the third guy for the Hardy Boys.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Maybe to add to a longer the feud between the three teams, but add to the TLC match. You know what? I don't think Rhino or Spike Dudley's ready to be at WrestleMania. I mean, in the corners, one thing.
You brought him back on Raw. I mean, we not brought him back, but you introduced him on Raw.
So, where else are you gonna?
What the hell? You could have left him in dark matches for the next 3 years.
True.
I mean,
I think in Rhino's case, it might help. Not 3 years, of course.
but all I'm saying is that I do realize that's a lot of guys to have in one match, but you can still change things up a little bit.
And you also got to look at the fact that I don't think Rhino well, maybe Spike Dudley, he's used to taking those bumps, but I don't think Rhino's style is going to really lead to being an
Hey, he
asset
doesn't
in
have
that
to fall off
match.
a ladder. He can do other things like.
Not much.
The thing that kind of depressed me about Spike Dudley's debut is I'm watching. I've never been a huge Spike Dudley fan, but just watching him and coming out and doing this whole thing, it just it's like it's another guy who weighs like 160 pounds, who's not a great wrestler, but he's decent enough that here goes another cruiserweight that you could have and build. You could probably have a better light heavyweight division than WCW's, but
You're just
course,
talking foolish talk now.
I am. I mean, but the belt just gets crapped away.
Well, let's talk some more foolish talk. We're going to go to a clip here shortly. The main event was I guess they said it was a handicap match.
Originally, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was in the end, too.
Jericho and The Rock against Chris Benoit, who's a heel again.
So why the hell is she showing up with Steve Austin at 10:45 on a plane?
For the same
They're
reason
married,
Kane burned his
Well,
parents.
still, yeah, but seriously, but wouldn't you think that would add more tension to the Rock Austin story if they made Deborah travel with The Rock?
Yeah.
You're also forgetting one thing.
Very excited.
Now, who cares, really? That's the thing you're forgetting. Nobody here cares. You're forgetting the fact that Deborah's useless in every way.
I don't think she's a good cog. Let's put it that way.
We debated it last week when we're running out of
A
time.
useful cog,
Well, yeah.
a logical cog. I'm sorry.
Let's wrap it up.
Shoot me.
We'll be back right after this. We'll have all kind of ranting subjects next segment. And for the second week in a row, I seem to be doing this every week. I'm going to rip into somebody on the internet. Scott Keith, who I usually praise and have in the past on the show, he did his rant, so to speak, on Rear pay-per-view. He said a lot of complimentary things about the pay-per-view, some decent ratings, some poor ratings. But the way he ended it kind of bothered me. He ended by saying, well, obviously tying into WCW going out of business with Turner and all that. But he ended it by saying, in the 20-plus years he's been a WCW fan, I think he said something to the effect of he's glad to see that they were put out of their misery. Why? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just us saying this. I don't know if anyone on the internet's noticing this, but the fact that WCW is going to be not on television for the next probably 4 to 5 months minimum, I think the ramifications are going to be felt all across the board, the WWF actually. The basis of this hot streak of wrestling we've been in the last couple of years has been competition. I don't care how good WCW was in the past and how good WWF has been and probably continue to will be. You always got to have an alternative. And you had alternatives for both. And now that's not there, it's going to be interesting to see both the ratings and the storytelling for the WWF and how they're going to progress. And we've talked about it last week. WWF writers in the past have admitted to being lazy because of the lack of competition that WCW has provided. Now WCW is not there anymore. I don't know what's going to happen. But for Scott Keith to come out and say, well, he's glad to see them put him out of their misery, it's ridiculous. This is going to hurt wrestling as a whole, and I don't know what Scott Keith was thinking when he wrote this.
I don't know. I'll look into it though.
We're not telepaths. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on the show about Shane Helms and his title defense at Greed. I want to talk a little bit about his title defense on Nitro against Billy Kidman. Shane Helms came out. He basically said that he needed to prove himself and wrestle somebody that, quite frankly, was his equal in the cruiserweight division. Well, guess what? Billy Kidman's not it. Here's a guy that, had he been established by WCW as a legitimate cruiserweight champion, had he been now contending for the United States title, you could have brought him back into the cruiserweight divisions, had Helms beat him as an established cruiserweight and furthering Helms' career. Instead, you got Helms wrestling a guy, Kidman, whose biggest claim to fame is getting beat up by the bald guy with the fake beard. The thing is, WCW has a future superstar in their hands in Shane Helms, and you had him wrestle Billy Kidman. That would have been fine had Kidman been used right in the first place.
Just on that note, I should just amend something I said earlier in the show, and I ripped the way Shane Helms talks. I wasn't ripping I guess he has a speech impediment. I wasn't trying to make light of his speech impediment. I'm just saying, when somebody sounds like it, I think you got to give him a mouthpiece. But nonetheless, staying on the WCW vein, Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell fought the WCW Tag Champs Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare. Yeah, God, why can't I get these guys straight? Over the weekend. And apparently went to the WCW bookers before the match and said, look, we'll either do one of two things. We'll either wrestle or we'll job. And so they lost the match in 30 seconds and took forever to get out of the ring just to, show their disapproval of having to do the job to the tag team champions. I can't think of two guys who should be in any less of a position to try to bully their way around the back than Luger and Buff Bagwell. I mean, Lex Luger, talk about a guy who was on the ride of his life back in 1993, and weeks before SummerSlam, WWF realized what a freaking waste of time this guy was and buried him. I mean, give me a break. Lex Luger's not going to get a job with anybody. And Buff Bagwell, I mean, here's a guy who's, 28, 29 years old, pretty decent build, has a mediocre look, whatever. But I think with the WWF repackaging him, they might be able to make something out of this guy. But here's a guy who probably just crapped all his chances away of getting hired by the WWF ever, or any other company for that matter. Those two guys deserve whatever crap they get for the rest of their careers. I wouldn't even put them on Nitro the next evening. There's a lot of people on the internet who say Totally Buff completely suck. Not just their wrestling, but their attitudes. These guys are the worst.
Well, much to the dismay of you, my cohorts, I am not going to rant about The Rock as previously mentioned. I am, however, going to rant about the WWF and possible roster cuts with the influx of ECW talent coming in. Let's say Rhino, Jerry Lynn eventually, Tajiri, Spike Dudley, and various others. The WWF has a plethora of guys that really need to get axed on the chopping block, insert whatever here. I got a couple right here, right now, like Van Halen would say. Steve Blackman, get the hell rid of him. Billy Gunn, he's on jacked right now. That's not good enough. I know he gets big ovations, but that's because he's the one and he wears gold trunks. Get rid of him. Another guy, Brian Christopher. If you're not going to do anything with him, you're not going to be serious about the light heavyweight division, get rid of him. Taz, enough said with Taz. Get rid of him, let him wrestle. He's not a good commentator, as previously pointed out by Mr. Detour over here. And I had a couple other ones, but I can't really remember. The point is, the WWF, with the plethora of talent I mentioned, there is just too much room. Boss Man, another one. I realize that you're going to try to throw everybody onto WrestleMania just to get a paycheck, but it's not necessary. Cut them. Let them go to UWF or Urban, whatever that's called. I know WCW doesn't have a company anymore. ECW doesn't have one. Ohio Valley does. The WWF's breeding ground, I guess you could say, minor league. What? Breeding ground. Not for disease, for talent, damn it. Anyway. The hell with you guys. I'll handle this on myself. Send them down there in retrospect or in conclusion, if you will. Make the roster cuts.
What was breeding ground?
You've never heard that.
I've heard it. It's like they have litters of puppies.
Well, I'm not thinking like the farm kind of mindset. I mean, never mind.
I'm sorry.
Well, check out our breeding ground. Go ahead, Jim. Give the address.
I think these guys have some columns they want to plug.
Not the hell with that.
Well,
We thank you. If you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can read it on the web. It's www.triblive.com/sports. Enough said.
Enough said. My column is the Daily News. Oh, yeah. My column is...
Look what you've done, Tom.
My column, Sharpshooter, it's in the Daily News. You can pick it up on newsstands everywhere right now, or you can check it out on the internet at www.dailynewsmckeysport.com. And I'll be talking about further wrestling breeding grounds and crap like that. And
another one I'll never live down.
Yeah.
well, it's www.prowrestlingreview.com. You want to enter the contest, you'll got to answer all 4 questions, 3 on the website, and once again, the one from the show. What building and city was the first Nitro held at? Got to answer all 4, include your name and address. Send us email.
For a
everything
bonus
else.
point, what city and building was the last WCW Nitro held?
It was also the last stop on the Lex Express tour.
Didn't the bus blow up before it got there?
I
Wow.
wish.
Transmission trouble.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's about it for myself, Brian, Rennie, and Jim. We're currently going to Atlanta for the WCW Fire Sale, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.